my mom chose my toxic stepsister over me and kicked me out. Now, I got engaged, and my fiancé's company dropped her husband. She blames me. I, 26F, have been engaged to my fiancé, whom we'll call Jeff, 26M, for approximately 2 months. I met him 4 years ago on a dating app, and we've been inseparable since. Jeff and I are soulmates. He is the only person in my life who has never disappointed me. I have not had an easy life. My parents divorced when I was 2 years old. My father abandoned us without looking back. He paid child support, but that was it. He never bothered to come and see how I was doing. To be honest, my mother, 48F, was not a terrific mother either. When I was younger, she was more focused on other activities than on raising me. I was basically reared by nannies and babysitters. When I was a little older, my mother was quite young, and her priorities were very different. She didn't care much about becoming a mother and spent most of her time with friends or on dates. She was an outgoing socialite who had no time for me. Even in terms of her career, she was not taking her work seriously. She was a freelance artist who made good money every month, but she didn't have to worry about me since she had child support checks coming in to cover everything. I hate to say it, but if it hadn't been for the child support, I'm very sure she would have kicked me out a long time ago. She was never very devoted to me, and I suspected she was waiting for me to mature so I could leave her alone. Then, when I was around 13, she began seeing my stepfather. My stepfather, Matt, 50 million, has a daughter around my age. We'll call my stepsister Jess. When they initially started dating and my mother brought his family home to introduce us, she advised me to be on my best behavior since this was very important to her. Now, Mom had brought home boyfriends dozens of times before, but she had never been concerned about how I behaved. She would generally just tell me that she had guests coming over, and I would use that as a cue to go into my room and stay until they went. But this time, I had the impression she was serious about the person, otherwise, she would not have been concerned about my actions. To put it another way, if she wasn't serious about Matt, she wouldn't have worried about my presence in the house at all. The first time I met him and his daughter, they were relatively kind to me, and it was a pleasant introduction. I had no idea what was going to happen to me following that initial meeting. Soon after, he began to visit more frequently, and it seemed as if they had almost moved in together. I didn't mind it. It wasn't bothering me in any way, so I had no need to worry about them as long as they allowed me to go on with my life. It remained that way for a long time. They were practically living together, and Jess would occasionally visit as well. Her mother was still a part of her life, therefore she spent half of each month at her mother's house. Initially, people were either polite to me or ignored me. I was fine with that because I didn't really care for any of them. I didn't really care about my mother, so it was tough for me to care about anyone related to her. All I wanted was my own peace and quiet, which I enjoyed for a while. But then they decided to make it a permanent relationship and move in together. Now, I wouldn't have cared, but my mother informed me that now that they were moving in together, I would have to start sharing my room with my stepsister. I refused to do that because it was my room. It had been my room my entire life, and it was the one thing that gave me calm. In that house, I had my own private area. I was not going to give up my freedom by sharing a room with someone I barely know. When I told my mother that I was not going to share my room, we had a heated quarrel. She threatened to kick me out of the house if I did not do what she asked. I was 14 years old at the time, and despite my youth, I was aware of the law. I felt compelled to since my mother was the type of person you couldn't truly trust. It's also plain basic logic, and I knew mother couldn't send me out until I was an adult, or she'd face legal consequences. So I informed her that I knew she couldn't do it and that she was faking. She was frustrated, but she had to let me have my room and chose to convert the basement into Jess's room. It wasn't a very horrible place to be. It wasn't as nice as my room, but my mother worked hard to make it more appealing and livable. By the time she was finished, it looked as good as any other room in the home, so I had no idea what the big issue was. But for some reason, that's when Jess started disliking me. It could have had something to do with the fact that on the day she moved in with us, my mother gave them a house tour and made it clear to everyone that Jess had to live in the basement since I wasn't ready to share my room. I didn't understand why she would make such an announcement, and I still can't think of a rationale. Perhaps she intended to make me feel bad by stating it in front of Jess, but all it did was make me feel strange and uncomfortable. It made me feel embarrassed for her, but I didn't feel bad about putting my foot down. Or perhaps she simply enjoyed drama and wanted Jess to know that I had refused to share my room with her, which would undoubtedly lead to difficulties between us. Jess did not appear to be the type of girl who would tolerate something like this. My mother was correct. Jessica refused to let it go. After that day, she began treating me as an adversary. She would still spend half of the month with her mother, but the days she would be living with us were excruciatingly difficult for me. She was a threat to society, and she had a personal vendetta against me. She was frequently nasty to me and made horrible statements about me right in front of my face. To give you an example of what she would say, she once told me that the reason my father left my mother was most likely because of me. Then she laughed, as if it were hilarious. She would make fun of my appearance because I was slightly fat at the time. She used to make fun of me at school for no apparent reason. Jess had a huge clique of mean females at school, and she would never miss a chance to bully me with her friends. Earlier, she and her pals would simply ignore me, which I loved. She and I were never friends, but that was vastly preferable to being her enemy. The saddest aspect was that I had done nothing to her. She was simply offended that I did not want to share my room with her. It was a ridiculous cause to hate me so much and try to ruin my life. My room was my safe area, and with a mother like mine, I don't think anyone can blame me for wanting my own space. Besides, if any of them had ever made an effort to get to know me, I could have shared my room with her. But she was a stranger to me, and I didn't feel comfortable giving up my independence for her. I never complained to my mother or Matt because they were aware of the situation and it was meaningless to do so. They didn't care. I might be bullied my entire life, and they would still turn a blind eye since I was not important to them. So I had to put up with it and let her trample all over me. I would fight back periodically, but I quickly realized that it only escalated the conflict. Our parents would intervene, and I would be grounded because they despised me. She would constantly cry a little to get out of trouble. But I couldn't cry on command like her, and I wasn't as manipulative. So I'd be the one who was punished for my poor behavior and advised to start treating Jess like a sister, while she got away with it and I had to face the consequences. It was a miserable place to grow up, and I despised my existence. So when I was finally kicked out around my 18th birthday, I was relieved more than anything else. I had put up with my family's crazy for years before being kicked out, and it only became worse over time. Jess continued to be a nightmare to deal with, and our parents continued to back her without questioning the legitimacy of her actions. In 4 years, she had managed to turn our whole high school year against me, and I had just a few friends who would even talk to me. Everyone else despised me because she did, and that was sufficient justification. It had taken a toll on my mental health, and I was battling to keep up in all areas. I had acquired a lot of weight from binge eating, and it had severely changed my appearance for the worst. I was overweight, acne-prone, and had pretty awful hair. I was also trying to maintain my grades. So not only did I look horrible, but I also appeared to be dumb to everyone else. I had nothing going for me and was at an all-time low. Things at home were no better, as I still had to deal with Jess and my parents. My mother had grown increasingly irritable and would continually compare me to Jess, despite the fact that she was the one who had made my life so much worse than it had been previously. Things were terrible before my mother married Matt and they moved in together, but not as horrible as they are now. Yeah, it was terrible that my mother didn't care about me before, but after her marriage to Matt, I went from the frying pan to the fire. She progressed from not caring to intentionally making me feel horrible about myself, and it felt as if I was also living with mean females at home. It was very clear to me that Jess was the daughter my mother had hoped for. Instead, life had dealt her the wrong hand, and she was stuck with me. I know they both wanted nothing more than for me to leave, and to be honest, I did too. My mother and Jess despised me, but Matt didn't care. I have no relatives to speak of other than my mother because my grandparents did not communicate with us. I had never known my father, and I knew nothing about my other grandparents. I actually had nowhere to go, and I felt awkward approaching my friends for assistance. So I had to fight it out and stay with my mother to ensure that I had a roof over my head and food to eat every day until I reached 18. But then, a few weeks before my birthday, an incident occurred, and I was expelled out the same day. It was a weekend, yet I remember it like it was yesterday since it was one of the most terrible and stressful days of my life. We had both recently graduated, and she had begun hanging out with a bigger circle of folks. She had a buddy whose brother was in his senior year of college, and she was dating her brother. So she and her friend would hang out with his pals, who were all older than us. I understood exactly what they were up to, but I didn't think it was worth bringing it up with my parents because, with my luck, it would only backfire. So I never told anyone that she'd started drinking. And, while I couldn't prove it, I knew she was smoking pot and whatnot. I was never interested in any of it because, first and foremost, I never had friends who were cool enough to have access to drink, cigarettes, or drugs. Second, I was already suffering with my weight and academics. I didn't need to add drink or drugs to the mix, I already had plenty on my plate. But that day, I believe I left my room unlocked before going for a shower. The next thing I knew I heard a banging on the bathroom door, and my mother was yelling at me, insisting that I come out right once. I had to rush and put on my clothes so I could see what she was talking about. When I got out of the shower, my mother, Matt, and Jess were waiting in my room, all with serious expressions on their faces. My mother took out a bunch of empty beer bottles from beneath my bed, and even more incriminating, there was a giant plastic baggie containing, I'm not sure how many grams of weed. My parents were unaware that it did not belong to me or Jess. I believe she had planted it in my room when I was not there and then informed my mother. They began flipping out and yelling at me about what a terrible person I was. She didn't just yell at me about the drink and drugs, she also started venting about how I was a complete disgrace to them. She protested that I ate all the food. She stated I was a waste. She was convinced that I would never do anything worthwhile in the future and would simply continue to live with them and spend their money. I attempted to explain multiple times that none of it belonged to me and that I had no idea how it ended up in my room, but she didn't believe me. She lost it when I suggested that Jess might have planted it in my room to get me in trouble. She began yelling at me about how I was always jealous of her and that I would never be as good as her at anything, which was why I was attempting to shift the blame. I was crying uncontrollably by that point, but she didn't seem to care and proceeded to rant at me. After some while, she stopped shouting at me and told me I needed to leave. I had no idea what she was talking about, so I asked her where I was heading. She told me she didn't care where I went, she just wanted me out of the house because she was tired of dealing with me. When I refused to go, she threatened to call the cops on me. She added that because I was almost 18, they would treat the drug allegations very seriously. She informed me she did not want an addict living with her and consuming all of her money and resources. I had to watch out for myself now since she was tired of pretending to be a happy family with someone who deserved nothing. I was pleading with her not to force me out because, while I wanted to leave, I knew I had nowhere to go and didn't have enough money on my own. But my mother didn't care. She informed me that if I didn't leave within that day, she would phone the police and report me herself. I was surprised that she could be so cruel, and even more so that neither Matt nor Jess complained about it. They were literally going about their day as if nothing was happening. After a lot of crying and begging, I finally started packing my belongings. I would gladly choose to live on the streets over being arrested for drug possession. I finished packing by the evening, and as I left the house, no one said goodbye, and I never looked back. I went to the park and sat on a seat for a few hours, but it got pretty cold. So I decided to go over to a friend's apartment and spend the night there, hoping they would let me. I went to my best friend Amy's house and asked if I could stay with her for a few days. She already knew how my parents were, so I didn't need to explain much to her. When I told her about what had happened that day, she was horrified. She said her parents could help me if I allowed them. I'd always urged her not to tell anyone about how my parents treated me, including her parents, because I wasn't sure if anyone would believe me. I guess I felt awkward revealing these sensitive information about my life with others. But that day, she compelled me to inform her parents, who were as appalled as Amy was. They called my mother and attempted to speak with her, but it didn't help, and she was quite unpleasant to them. So they recognized that talking to her would not make things any better. Then they did something for which I am grateful beyond words. They promised me I could stay with them for as long as I needed to and that they would assist me. They were wealthy, so money was not an issue, and Amy adored me, so she was willing to share a room with me. I spent the following few years living with them and attending community college, which was the only place I could get accepted due to my poor grades. I began working and accumulating money to buy my own place, but Amy's parents made sure I never felt pressured to leave their home and made me as comfortable as they could. Then, roughly 3 years ago, I finally acquired enough money to move out. I was proud of myself, and I was also grateful to Amy and her parents. I honestly could not have done it without them. Even on the day I moved out, they were the ones who helped me settle into my new home and informed me that I was welcome to return whenever I wanted to visit or even live with them. That was the turning point in my life. By then, I'd shed a lot of weight and my health had improved significantly. I felt and looked better. I was also generating enough money to support myself and had put in enough effort to improve myself. So I decided to start dating as well because I wanted to marry someday and needed to start searching. I met a couple of guys before Jeff, but it usually fizzled out before it could get serious. After meeting Jeff, I fully understood why. It was because Jeff and I were intended to be together, whereas the other guys I met before him were only there to have fun. When we first started dating, I had no idea he was wealthy and the heir to his father's firm. I just liked him because he was humorous and cute, and he appeared to like me as well. After a few months of dating, he informed me about his family, and I understood they owned a restaurant chain, which he would inherit in a few years after his father retired. Many people may believe that learning how wealthy he was changed things for me, but I simply regarded him as the same person I had known before. That information made no difference to me. I still loved him as much as I did before. We moved in together after approximately a year of dating, and he had introduced me to his family a few months earlier. Everyone in his family liked me, and we got along great. Everything was absolutely perfect. So, when he recently asked if I wanted to marry him, I knew the answer right away. We've been engaged for 2 months now, and things are going great. But then, around 2 weeks ago, I got an email from Jess. We haven't spoken in almost 8 years, and I haven't heard from my family since I was kicked out. I had no idea why she would contact me now, especially to make amends. I believe enough time has passed, and neither of us cares enough to try to mend the problem anymore. So when I received that email and understood she was reaching out to me to apologize for all that had happened in the past and admit that she had been a complete nightmare, I was perplexed. She admitted to placing stuff in my room to get me tossed out since she disliked me for no reason. I had no understanding why she was revealing all of that so many years later, and I sensed something was wrong with the situation. The timing was further suspect because I had recently gotten engaged, and I knew she must have known about it. I had mentioned it on social media, and we attended the same high school, so someone must have told her about it. Everything felt odd, so I started to investigate. As a result, I discovered that the man Jess was married to also owned the company that supplied plastic containers and other items for takeaway orders to Jeff's restaurants. It was easy for me. All I had to do was create a phony profile and stalk her. From there, I went to her husband's profile, where he disclosed everything about his work in his bio, so it was a simple process. I already knew a lot about Jeff's business because we had planned to run it together after his father retired, so I was already learning the ropes. When I realized this was the individual he was dealing with, I immediately alerted Jeff. Now, over the past few years, I've done my best not to think about my previous life since I just wanted to go on. So I didn't follow anyone from my family online, and I told my friends not to tell me anything about them. I had no idea Jess was already married and had been for a few years. But when I discovered that her husband was actually interacting with us, Jeff and I decided to cancel our arrangement. It was already costing us a lot of money, and I don't think I'd ever do business with that woman again. Jeff also informed me that the quality of the things delivered by her husband had reduced significantly since the beginning. They were considering dropping him as a supplier anyhow and were in talks with another guy who offered lower prices and better products. So, last week, a few days after I received Jess's email, Jeff decided to meet with her husband and cancel their contract. But, for some reason, Jess believes I did this on purpose to get her back, and she has been accusing me of it in her emails and social media posts. We haven't spoken in about a decade, but she still believes I am carrying a grudge against her. Which I may be, but that is not the true reason her husband lost our contract. She posted a few days ago that many of her clients had already dropped them, and this was the final straw. But she maintains that I did it out of spite, and that this was really unprofessional of us. She tagged our Facebook page in her post, and things have gotten pretty ugly. I feel awful for her because, according to her message, she and her husband have been losing business left and right. Okay, I'll admit that some of this was personal, but much of it was business as well. I doubt Jeff and his father would have dropped her husband as a supplier based only on my word. Nevertheless, I feel awful for her. I'm not sure if I should have made my fiancé quit working with my estranged stepsister's husband. Update 1. Okay, so Jeff has spoken with his father's lawyers, and he believes we did the correct thing. So we're going after them legally and asking that they remove that message. We are also filing defamation charges against them because the guy charged us a bomb and delivered things that fell short of our expectations. If we could obtain a better offer somewhere else, we'd obviously go there. It's just a coincidence that Jess is married to the guy who runs that firm. Instead of improving their company's operations, she chose to trash us on social media. It's stupid that I allowed myself to feel horrible for her after everything she'd put me through. But you guys truly opened my eyes, so I appreciate that. Many of you have been quite supportive, which I appreciate. Thank you so much for your comments. Update 2. So Jeff and his father filed a slander claim against Jess and her husband a few days ago. We'll meet with a court-appointed mediator in a week, maybe. But in the meantime, my mother has taken it upon herself to protect her poor little stepdaughter yet again. It is so silly. I feel like I am back in high school. But, happily, I'm not back in high school, so I can simply disregard what they say. Unlike then, I don't need to be in my mother's books to get a roof over my head. So she may cry all she wants about it, but nothing will change. She has been attempting to contact me for the past few days, ever since Jess was served, but I have simply blocked her and gone on with my life. I don't need that type of negativity around me. I am engaged. I'm going to marry the guy of my dreams, and I don't need her or her insane stepdaughter back in my life. Update 3. Hey, so let me quickly fill you in. First, we won the defamation lawsuit. It wasn't even that difficult because my father-in-law's lawyers are absolute sharks, and they killed her and her husband. So, maybe they'll focus more on their business now and meet their clients' expectations. They had to pay for what they stated, and we were able to strike an agreement. So that's over, and we can finally devote all of our attention to preparing our wedding. It's quite thrilling, and I can't wait to get married to Jeff. As previously stated, he is my soulmate, and I have waited a long time to find someone like him. Now that I have him, I will never let go. I discovered my wife's affair after 31 years of marriage. Gathering evidence, I secretly prepared for divorce, secured my assets, and exposed her. I work as a primary school teacher, so my schedule is very stable. I have regular hours at school, and Tuesday afternoons are earmarked for staff meetings, which usually last until 6 p.m. As a result, I was generally home by 7 p.m. Terry, my wife of 31 years, was frequently exhausted on Tuesday evenings from her gym routines. So I frequently took the initiative to make dinner while she washed and took care of other household chores. I work as a primary school teacher, so my schedule is very stable. I have regular hours at school, and Tuesday afternoons are earmarked for staff meetings, which usually last until 6 p.m. As a result, I was generally home by 7 p.m. Terry, my wife of 31 years, was frequently exhausted on Tuesday evenings from her gym routines. So I frequently took the initiative to make dinner while she washed and took care of other household chores. However, one day, our school principal shocked us by canceling the staff meeting. It was still just 3:30 p.m., so I decided to leave early and get a jump start on supper preparations. Before Terry returned from the gym, I planned to finish up some last-minute domestic duties. I had sensed her becoming more distant recently, and I hoped that a candlelight meal in a calm setting, devoid of the regular domestic procedures, would reignite our intimacy and passion. Our marriage had been going through a difficult period, often centered on money difficulties. Terry grew increasingly distant from me. She appeared to want greater control over many elements of our lives and would become obstinate and angry when things didn't go her way. Despite these problems, I considered myself a patient man. That day, I arrived home like any other day, parking in our garage, which was fairly far from our house. When our children were little, we positioned the garage in this location to guarantee that car noises did not disturb their sleep. Their sleep was vital not only for their health, but also for our sanity. It offered us some quiet time to refuel as they slept peacefully. So I parked and took my customary walk up to our 2-story home. Terry's car was in the garage, but it was a familiar sight on her workout days because she preferred to take the bus to the gym. As I approached the rear door, my first thought was that it was time to clean up the area. I was good at fixing things around the house, so all of the door hinges and moving parts were in good working order and made no noise. Nothing bothered us more than noisy doors and squeaky hinges. However, the first thing I noticed was Terry's purse, which was still sitting on the kitchen counter. I knew she'd be upset by it. Terry was diligent about having her purse close by no matter where she was in the home. This surprising sight diverted my attention, and I started noticing other unique things. Her exercise clothes, mostly a snug leotard and a large towel, sat on the floor beside the kitchen counter. Then I heard sounds from our upstairs bedroom. I considered the likelihood that Terry had fallen ill unexpectedly and was upstairs. I walked the carpeted stairs slowly and softly, almost stumbling over a pair of men's shoes left on the steps. Those shoes were certainly not mine, nor were the slacks, shirt, tank top, and socks sprawled across the rest of the stairs. They were mixed in with Terry's undergarments, which she reserved for special occasions such as our wedding anniversaries. I came to a standstill. My skin became clammy, and my blood pressure dropped, causing my heart to temporarily skip a beat. I had to sit down on the stairs to gather my thoughts. My disbelief evolved to anger, and feeling I rarely experience. As a result of years of handling 30 children every day as a teacher, I am usually calm and controlled. But now, that calmness has escaped me. Adrenaline rushed through my veins, and I felt angry like never before. I'd never even participated in a real fight. These sentiments were completely unfamiliar to me. In the midst of these weird feelings, curiosity pushed me to slowly climb the stairs and enter our shared closet. There were 2 doors in front of me, one leading to the bedroom and the other to the upstairs bathroom. To get to the bedroom, I had to go through the ensuite bathroom, which led to our large walk-in wardrobe. From there, I could get into our bedroom. At the wardrobe door leading to the bedroom, I could see what was beyond. The closet door was slightly open and positioned perfectly for me to see the bed. It was like watching a horror movie, and I couldn't take my gaze away. I'd been hearing those moans and grunts all along, but now I was overcome with a powerful combination of rage and shock. I grabbed my phone and began documenting what I was watching. I knew I'd need this footage later, to persuade myself that it was all genuine and that I wasn't stuck in some terrible nightmare. It would provide evidence for the upcoming encounter with Terry. My attention was riveted on the awful spectacle of treachery unfolding in front of me. This was my wife, my lover, my life partner, and someone I had put my complete trust in. She was our adult children's mother, a woman in her 40s who worked out, did humanitarian work, and most importantly, expressed her love for me. This was betrayal in its most basic form. I had to stop recording and silently go down the stairs. I left our property and began strolling, unsure where I was going. But finally, I found myself in a park far from home. I sprayed water on my face, sat down, and watched the video on my phone. To avoid disturbing the youngsters playing nearby, I turned down the volume. The devastation of my life and all I had come to accept as normal was right there on my phone screen, preserved in digital reality. It was the devastation of our marriage. And it was at that point that I finally allowed my tears to fall. Update. It was around 7 p.m., which is when I usually come after staff meetings. I found myself at home, standing by the back door. Terry realized something was wrong right away. My unkempt appearance, red eyes, and pale complexion were obvious symptoms. She inquired with genuine concern. "Honey, what's wrong? You look really pale. Is everything all right? I'll get you a drink. Are you okay?" Her eyes expressed her concern. I couldn't bring myself to tell her the true reason for my concern. In a weak voice I said, "Not really. Something upset my stomach, possibly lunch. I'm taking a shower and going to bed." Terry replied, "Okay, hon, but take a container with you to bed. If you puke, it might be on the nice clean sheets." Those once clean blankets were now stained with something far worse than last night's dinner. Treachery. I said more forcefully, "It's okay, I'll sleep in the spare room until I feel better." And proceeded to the extra downstairs bedroom. That was how things went for the next few days. Terry continued her customary routine, seemingly unconcerned about my discomfort. I was on autopilot at work, and I kept sleeping in the spare bedroom, citing the possibility of illness. I knew I couldn't make that excuse for long. I eventually returned to our bedroom, but resting in that location of betrayal was a challenge. Terry continued as if nothing had changed. When Monday arrived, I decided what to do next. I needed to know if this was a continuing affair or a one-time occurrence. I informed my principal that I would be undergoing an unexpected medical operation the next day, and he scheduled a replacement teacher to take my class. Tuesday morning, I went home as normal, but parked a few blocks away from our area before walking back. I recognized the rear entrances to the surrounding yards around our house. I walked cautiously, making sure no neighbors would see me, and made my way to our garage, which was located at the back of the home. There, I changed into casual clothes. Soft, noiseless socks perfect for walking quietly. Then it became a waiting game. I remembered there was no spare automobile at home when I unexpectedly returned last Tuesday. As a result, I couldn't rely on the sound of a car approaching to notify me to potential visitors. They must have walked here. I moved carefully through our gardens until I reached a point where I could see our front door while keeping hidden behind the hedges and shrubs we had placed for cover from the road. I waited. Terry could be heard going about her daily routine, entirely unconscious of my presence. Her assurance that the routine will continue as usual was clear. Kitchen responsibilities, such as washing dishes and using the dishwasher, were followed by living room activities such as vacuuming and dusting. This lasted until about 11:30. Terry then went upstairs. I could just hear the shower, then a period of silence, and then the toilet flushing. She returned downstairs approximately 45 minutes later, opened the front door, and kept it open so that any potential visitors would not hesitate. I did not have to wait long. Around 12:30, he arrived. I had no idea who he was, but he walked in through the left side of our front gate. My phone captured approximately 10 seconds of video, including side profiles and an almost direct view of his face. He did not hesitate. He entered and passed through the door. The following sentences sent shivers down my spine. "Hey lover. I hope you're dressed for a big workout again." Terry's reaction was, "Of course. You always love it when I wear these. I sometimes wonder if it was these that attracted you to me in the first place. Or maybe it was these." I'd seen enough to corroborate the ongoing affair. Their familiarity suggested that it was not a one-off. As they entered the bedroom, I withdrew to the garage, attempting to calm myself. With my heart beating, I wrestled with the scorching questions. Who is this man? I questioned whether I would ever have an intimate relationship with her. I observed no indicators of protection, which made me concerned about potential threats if she was with others. I wondered why she never expressed her feelings. I remembered Terry's 2-year gym workouts in the neighborhood, where she met local married women and participated in charity events. Perhaps the gym contained solutions to our problems. Update 1. As a teacher, I had access to computers, printers, and other materials. I decided to start my research by printing profile photographs from my phone film to see who was involved. Maybe that would eventually lead me to the location and time of the incident. It was easy to figure out who the who was. Terry had her normal gym session the following Thursday, and I proposed that I join her to see whether I would want to become a member as well, especially since I was taking a midterm break. Terry wasn't too keen on the idea and made excuses like, "It's just a group of married ladies, and we mostly chat during the session," among other lame justifications. I persevered and accompanied her to the gym the following Thursday. As I stepped into the gym, it felt like a scene from an old Western film, with everyone turning to gaze when a stranger enters the saloon. All eyes were on me, and I overheard some quiet comments among the women. Terry dismissed it, noting that they were not used to seeing her with someone during her regular gym sessions. The workout began with the standard warm-ups and stretching, followed by an hour and a half of moving between exercise stations to target various muscle groups. I attempted to stay up, but I needed to take a break around 45 minutes in. My blood sugar was plummeting, and I realized I needed to eat something sweet soon. I did that, and Terry understood. After collecting some jelly beans and settling on a nearby chair, I started paying more attention to Terry. She was clearly nervous, as she repeatedly glanced toward the staff section from where the instructors entered the main auditorium. I also looked closely at the gym itself. It had the standard architecture of a gym, with workout stations placed across the room and wall mirrors at each station to allow participants to examine their form and muscle definition. I decided to go around the gym a little more and discovered a wall near the hall exit with personnel information. It was a way to pass the time as we waited for Terry. I looked at the top photo, which showed a woman who appeared to be in good form but whose age was difficult to discern. I thought to myself, Miss Elizabeth, WS director and owner. Her contact information and hours of availability were listed underneath her photo. There were 3 more images below hers. 2 ladies and 1 man. At this time, I froze, understanding he was Terry's lover. This man was involved with my wife, and it appeared that he had her full consent. I read his job description, Mr. Phillip, head of exercise regime planning and personal body training. As I made a mental note of his phone number, I realized Terry had left the station where I had last seen her. I returned to my seat and thoroughly studied each station, looking for my wife. After some searching, I saw her engaged in what appeared to be a desperate conversation with a man partially concealed by some powerlifting equipment. He appeared to be near the entrance to the staff area and had evidently been stopped from entering, most likely by Terry. She motioned for him to leave and rushed back to the station where she was meant to be. She had not realized I had witnessed her absence and talk. I was furious, an emotion I was not used to. By the time Terry returned to my location, it was clear that I was not feeling well. She inquired, "Are you okay? Did it take a while for your blood sugar to recover?" I responded, "Yeah, I'm fine now. Are you ready to go?" Before she could react, Miss WS announced something over the gym's public address system. She stated that tonight's normal last workout session will be cancelled due to Mr. Bondi's untimely illness and departure. Most of the women there groaned and sighed at this news, since it appeared that Mr. Bondi's session had been a highlight for many. I thought to myself, this needs to be investigated. Terry stayed mute when the announcement was made, although she appeared relieved. Terry swiftly remarked, "Let's go," as she retrieved her towel and handbag from the spot where everyone kept their items during the workout. We were about to leave when one of the females, whom I didn't recognize, approached Terry. "It's such a shame that Phil couldn't finish the session as usual tonight," she told me. Terry said, "True," and headed toward the car, plainly signaling to the lady that she did not want to discuss it at that time. "Okay, see you, Terry," she murmured dismissively. Terry entered the automobile faster than I'd ever seen her do before. Terry appeared relaxed during the quiet ride home. She had her head thrown back, her eyes closed, and appeared to be purposefully taking slow breaths. I couldn't help but notice the changes in her conduct. Perhaps now, in her seeming relief, I could discover more about what was going on. "So that was quite an interesting session, dear, I told you. The workout stations seem to be set up really well. No wonder you're looking so fit and trim." "Thanks, honey," she said. "You're absolutely right. They offer an extensive program, and I enjoy going there. The ladies are friendly too. It's just a shame about Mr. Bonte, I prodded on. You mean Boney? She made a hasty correction. Philip Boney. He usually wraps up every session with an exercise routine that really challenges everyone, pushing their bodies to the limit. It was disappointing that he wasn't there tonight. Inside, I couldn't help but think, she's completely committed to this lie. I understood precisely how far Mr. Bondi was pushing her body, but all I said was, maybe next Thursday he'll be feeling better. I couldn't stop thinking about my wife's approaching intimate rendezvous with Mr. Bondi next Thursday. It was time to get down to business. I was assigned pickup duties for the following school week. For those unaware, this is when teachers supervise the area where parents pick up their children by car after school. It's usually a chaotic scene, with youngsters anxious to get home, talk to their pals, and find their parents all at once. Parents must be patient as they traverse the stop-and-go car queue, hoping their child will be ready when they get at the front. To my astonishment, near the end of pickup time, a car arrived, and the driver was the lady who had attempted to speak with Terry at the gym the night before. "Hi," she told me. "I'm sorry, but I'm new to this whole pickup thing, and I completely lost track of time. Is my son Timothy here?" As teachers, we are accustomed to this, especially when someone is new to the school. So I assured her that I would go find Timothy while my colleagues oversaw the remaining students. I found Timothy near his classroom, conversing with another staff member's youngster. "Hey, Tim," I said. "Your mom's here to pick you up. Come with me to the pickup area." He appeared puzzled by this. He was in his final year of primary school and did not strike me as the kind to forget about pickups. "That's odd," he said. "Mom is usually occupied with her gym instructor on Friday afternoons. She often picks me up late. At my previous school, she sometimes didn't arrive until around 5:30. My suspicions were deeper the instant I heard the gym instructor's words. I resumed the talk, attempting to remain composed and casual. It's good to see your mom taking care of her health. Exercise is a crucial part of a healthy lifestyle. Do you happen to know the instructor's name?" I hope the remark did not confirm my suspicions. "Oh, his name is Bounty or something like that," Timothy explained. "He also works at a local gym and often gives private lessons at people's homes. That's what I want to do when I grow up. Mom really enjoys her workouts with him on Friday evenings. She's so relaxed and looks radiant by the time we get home. It's fantastic. Fridays are always takeout nights because Mom rarely has time to cook." No way, I thought. This Bondi guy has relationships with more people than simply my wife. I walked Timothy back to his car, where his mother expressed her appreciation for our attention. "No problem," I replied. "It's all part of the service. By the way, I don't believe we've met before. I'm Gerard D.S. The kids call me Mr. D for short. Nice to meet you." I shook her hand and she introduced herself. "Hi, I'm Mary Jones. I remember seeing you at the gym last Thursday. I was there with my wife Terry." Sorry, she seemed rushed when leaving. Mr. Bondi's absence seemed to disrupt everyone's routine that night. At that point, her entire mood shifted radically. She had previously been an apologetic parent picking up her child from school, but she now appeared pale and guarded. She appeared to be trembling as she answered. Yes. All right, I'll see you again, Mr. Downs. Goodbye," and hurriedly drove away. Update 2. It was time to plan my future, something I assumed I had already done with my then partner, Terry. This future seemed grim, with only me and possibly no one else. Definitely not Terry. My rage drove me down a path I never imagined, the path of vengeance. I began methodically reviewing all of the important but frequently missed components of a couple's daily lives. Questions like, who is responsible for paying the bills? What insurance company do we use? What are our utility bills? Which account and when do we pay certain bills? As my database of this information grew, I realized we only had a little amount left to pay on our mortgage. My superannuation account had risen to an astonishing $900,000. I couldn't help but be grateful to our teachers' union for insisting on mandatory super contributions as part of a teacher's fundamental employment conditions. After performing extensive online study without Terry's knowledge, I regrettably concluded that there was no way around the fact that we would have to share all of our assets equally. Our kids were now financially independent. We did have a considerable sum saved in a cash account, approximately $30,000, for an upcoming abroad trip. Unfortunately, the vacation was no longer on the agenda. My first step would be to deplete that account as quickly as possible before Terry discovered that I had exposed her deception. I surreptitiously caused many household appliances to malfunction. When Terry was not home, I would occasionally disconnect a wire. Then I'd claim that Mr. So-and-so had arrived to fix the specific equipment, charging a certain amount in cash that was somewhat less than his advertised fee. I would covertly save this money and then repair the appliance myself. Using this strategy, I was able to save approximately $20,000. I also bought tools and such, always paying in cash. I showed them to Terry and returned them the following day for a monetary refund. I agree it was deceptive, but Terry's actions had already damaged our relationship's principles of honesty and trustworthiness. The whole circumstance was making me into someone I never imagined I could be. A liar. Terry's Thursday afternoon exercises with Bondi continued, and I stopped attempting to have any type of sexual relationship with her. We simply coexisted like two housemates would. My personal possessions gradually disappeared into the garage's crates. Terry rarely went into the garage, so she didn't notice the rearranging. Her car was usually parked in front of it, and she was satisfied to leave the garage as my personal zone. However, she did challenge the absence of some of my personal goods from the shelf on one occasion. I kept postponing an explanation, claiming that I had accidentally broken things or that they were no longer useful. Terry was fine with these comments, primarily because the majority of my items did not match her intended color scheme or the room's desired vibe. When I emptied out the majority of my belongings in this fashion, the atmosphere in the house remained quite unchanged. It made me realize how much I had succumbed to Terry's control in many parts of our relationship. I took as much of my superannuation as I could and bought a tiny property on the town's outskirts. It was really small, with only 2 bedrooms and a tiny yard, but it did have a garage and was conveniently placed near my school. What made it even better was that the remaining mortgage debt allowed me to comfortably make monthly payments on half of my wage. This was not a large mansion by any means. It's incredible how good a deal you can get if you're ready to sacrifice the draw of showy, busy areas. My separation preparations were begun. I gradually transported my own items to the new dwelling. Furniture was not a problem because I could easily find used or pre-owned items at thrift stores. It seemed as if my existence had been pre-loved, once adored but now forgotten, with no value other than charity. It was time for everyone engaged to get their just rewards. I reconnected with Mary Jones after she contacted me during a school pickup. I was alone with her kid Timothy, waiting for her. When she arrived, she appeared disturbed. Her eyes indicated recent tears. As a teacher, I was educated to pick up on these indications and provide insight into my students' lives and challenges. "Mr. D, can I talk to you for a minute?" she inquired urgently. "Of course. Since no one else is arriving, just stay parked there and come over to my usual spot," I told him. I referred to the seats surrounding the school as my workplace. She parked her car, Timothy played with his soccer ball, and we sat on the bench near the pickup area. "I'm not sure how to begin what I need to tell you," she told me. "I'm uncertain about how much you know regarding the gym you saw." I looked at her closely and responded hesitantly. "I know Terry, my wife, enjoys going there, and it has helped her stay fit and active." She paused, evidently straining to speak, before continuing. "There are some things you should know about what happens there." To get to the subject quickly, I said, "Is it related to Philip Bonte?" She reacted angrily. "You have no idea how much it involves that pig." I replied, "I might have an idea, but please go ahead and tell me." She firmly stated, "He's a player, targeting many of the regular women there." When I inquired how she knew, she said, with tears in her eyes, "I was one of them until last week. We met every Friday at 12:30. She halted and looked up, as if remembering those memories. I too looked away, remembering those sessions, though not fondly. She apologized. "I'm sorry for sharing this. I genuinely enjoyed what he was doing to me while it lasted. It was only when he had someone else taking my place during that time that he abruptly ended it, offering no explanation, just, 'Sorry, no more.' I honestly thought we might have a future. I'm divorced, and I miss the regular tenderness of a married relationship, so I was delighted to have it again, this time with him. I couldn't have been more wrong." Her candor stunned me. How could she believe it was appropriate to share all of this with me? She must be quite upset. To provide some comfort, I said swiftly, "Marriage relationships aren't always what they seem." She looked at my face and saw the sorrow and anguish in my expression. "You already know, don't you?" she inquired, gently shaking her head in surprise. "You already know that he's been involved with Terry, your wife." I was honest. "Yes, I knew, Mary. Thank you for sharing this." Though I attempted to hide my animosity, I added, "But I've already set things in motion regarding the whole situation. I genuinely believe in karma, and I think it might catch up with him soon. That guy has to face the consequences," Mary nearly yelled. "He doesn't care who he hurts or how, as long as he satisfies his sexual ego and has something to brag about to his bar pals. Just let me know if you need my help getting back at him. That person needs to pay, and he should pay dearly." She summoned her son and left. I sat there deep in thought for quite some time. Update 3: I felt relieved when Mary told me her story. For a while, my revenge plot felt like bitter grapes, arising from my inability to save my marriage, but I realized it required more thought. I began to wonder how many other ladies he was involved at the gym. It was time to collect concrete evidence. I couldn't help but be impressed by the man's stamina, but I guess even the devil never tires. I discovered that he worked at the gym every day except for Mondays, when it was closed. I remembered the phone number printed on the gym's wall and used the telecom's white pages to trace it back to an address that was only 3 blocks away from ours. It explained how that rascal could easily go over to our house and engage in relations with my soon-to-be ex-wife. I informed Terry that I would be going for a stroll every day around 5 p.m., claiming that my expert had advised it. Fortunately, Terry had no desire to accompany me, and she understood it wouldn't interfere with her liaisons, so everything went nicely. During my first nighttime walk, I went straight to Bonte's home and discovered that he lived in a ground-floor apartment among several other identical units. His car was missing, so I remained close to await his return. He consistently left our house before 6 o'clock, so he was likely to arrive around that time. As usual, he entered his apartment shortly before 6 o'clock. This happened every day I was able to go for a walk, with the exception of my staff meeting day, when I couldn't. I suspected he did this every day the gym was open. Did he meet up with a different woman on each of these days? I hope to find out by gradually beginning my walks earlier to track his everyday movements. I decided to take a whole week off from school for this very reason. I went to an electronics store and bought the appropriate equipment, which included an inconspicuous long-range listening device, not the one that looks like a satellite dish. I also purchased 5 voice and motion-actuated cameras with full-color HD capabilities. To guarantee that I had ample storage space for digital evidence, I purchased an additional portable hard drive for my computer. After buying these materials on Monday, I set up one of the cameras in Bondi's flat. Fortunately, his place wasn't extremely large, more of a one-bedroom apartment with a huge living and kitchen dining area, and one camera was plenty to capture everything but his bedroom. It was easy to get it inside his bedroom. I just waited for him to go to the gym before retrieving his apartment keys from where he had carelessly placed them beneath the doormat. He could not have been less imaginative. After checking that the camera worked properly, I left. Now, if he moved or made a sound in his apartment, the camera, which had a microphone, would activate and live stream both video and audio to my computer, where it was safely archived with date stamps. It resumed running as soon as Bondi arrived home on Monday night, recording clear images of him eating takeaway in front of his television before going to bed at 9 p.m. On Tuesday, I waited until the gym closed before entering through the back door, which is frequently ignored during pre-closing inspections at most establishments. Fortunately, I had luck on my side. I cleverly positioned the next camera in the private room at the back, where clients typically receive personal health assessments. This was the same room where Bondi regularly met with his private clientele. I couldn't help but wonder what kind of person I had become, installing cameras in other people's homes, essentially snooping. I was curious where this would lead. When Terry left for groceries on Wednesday, I took advantage of the chance and surreptitiously installed the 3rd and 4th cameras in our bedroom and living area. After analyzing the footage from Tuesday, I was both startled and unsurprised by what I saw and heard given the circumstances. Bondi awoke and quickly went, only to return later with food. I couldn't help but think, this lazy guy can't even make his own breakfast. He stayed at home until the gym opened, then departed around 10:30. During this moment he placed an unusual phone call. "Hi, Julie. It's Phil. Is he gone yet?" Pause. "Okay, I'll see you at 12:30 at your apartment. Make sure you wear what I mentioned." "No, I'll be careful. Nobody will notice me entering your space." "Did you say he was leaving for 3 days?" "Okay, maybe I can come on Thursday and Friday as well. We'll talk this afternoon, love." After that, he hung up the phone and left with a visible spring in his step. I could not help but wonder how he intended to explain this to Terry. On Thursday, I set up shop in the garage with my computer, excitedly anticipating the upcoming events. Almost instantly, Bondi's camera feed flashed on my screen. He'd gotten up, gone out for breakfast, then returned to make a phone call. He dialed Terry's phone, and the camera captured her part of the discussion as well. "Hi, this is Phil. How does my favorite slut feel today?" "Phil, stop talking like that on the phone. You never know who might be listening. Fortunately, my husband has gone to work. I'll see you at 12:30, as usual." Update 4: Mary, the mom from school, appeared eager to assist in any way she could. So I instructed her to construct a list of ladies with whom the scoundrel was currently or had previously been associated. She approached this assignment enthusiastically, and within a week, she had names and addresses. Terry's name appeared on that list, which surprised and disappointed me. By this point, I had almost severed all ties with her house, which had lost its emotional worth and had become merely a place to live. Terry did mention once that it felt awfully empty lately. I just stated that I was diligently decluttering my possessions. She accepted the explanation because it did not damage her goods and also gave her extra space. I'd also transferred the garage goods to my new home. To finish my escape, I simply needed 20 minutes to pack my possessions and drive away in my car. I met with a divorce attorney, and all of the necessary divorce documents were completed and ready to be served right away. The financial details were worked out. Our vacation savings were fully depleted, and the cash were moved to my personal bank account. I kept all of the bogus purchase receipts properly filed in a folder in case they were needed as proof. I changed the beneficiaries of my superannuation fund to our children and took any remaining cash. I opened separate bank accounts, credit cards, and insurance policies in my name only. The car, including registration and insurance, was moved wholly into her name, leaving her fully accountable for it from now on. Unfortunately, I had little authority over the house and had to rely on the court's choices. I bought a new phone, registered it under my name only, and made sure it had an unlisted number. The old phone was deactivated. I put together a packet of information for each husband or partner of the women identified by Mary. Each packet contained information regarding when and where the scoundrel had been involved with their partners. It also included his name and address. Additionally, I shared the address of our town's sexual health clinic, as it appeared that the majority of these interactions were unprotected. I wrote a comprehensive letter to the gym's owner, proposing that this was a good moment to have a serious discussion with her head teacher. I left the divorce papers on our kitchen table, along with printed images from that scoundrel and Terry's video surveillance and DVDs of their rendezvous. I placed my wedding ring next to this package, which had been split in half and was covered in horrible chemicals. The accompanying note stated, "Terry, I left you this ruined ring, covered in the same mess that represented what happened to our marriage. Please do not contact me unless it is through the attorney listed in the divorce papers. I have requested that the school block your access to the school premises, so please avoid attempting to reach me there. Causing disturbances on school grounds can result in immediate police action. I've also informed our children about my actions to avoid confusion about why this separation occurred. I've sent copies of the DVDs to them so there can be no false narratives about who initiated the separation." Final update. I drove to my new house and waited for the full extent of the fallout. The local newspapers discovered a scandal at a nearby gym. The proprietor had no choice but to close his firm and leave town. Meanwhile, a former gym instructor was found in a downtown back alley. He was alleged to have been assaulted by an unidentified group of male attackers. A rapid influx of divorce petitions inundated the local court, and several homes were listed for sale. Terry returned home that fateful day, discovered my farewell gifts, and immediately fainted. A neighbor overheard her screams and saw her collapse. Our astute 70-year-old neighbor quickly figured out why Terry had fainted. She immediately contacted emergency services before leaving her house, leaving the door open. Terry attempted to call me but was unable on any of our phones. She even attempted to visit the school, which led to her incarceration. After spending the night in the holding cell and receiving a stern warning from a magistrate, her attempts to contact me dropped significantly. Our children were outspoken in their criticism of her evident cheating. Fortunately, they were both married and had inherited my more ethical views on fidelity, rather than Terry's. The divorce processes were concluded, and the outstanding financial concerns were addressed in accordance with the regular procedure. Terry had to sell the house, and the funds enabled her to buy a smaller property in the outskirts, where she now lives alone. The stigma of being labeled as one of the notorious gym sluts never left her. When she went uptown, she received many sidelong glances and whispered snickers. Her melancholy as a result of this rejection and embarrassment forced her to seek treatment in a psychiatric hospital. As for me, I continued my teaching career while living happily in my new home.